Yo, it's been a while. Gonna make another video when the unemployment rate report comes out on Friday next week, which is October 4th. And then the next one is November 1st. So we're gonna have two more before the elections and FOMC in November. But the first thing I want to go over is from a technical perspective, this is really important. Okay, we have three drives of bearish divergence on the S&P 500. We have a high here, we have a higher high, and we have a higher high. We have a high here, we have a lower high, and we have another lower high. What is this telling you? Well, all I can do is mark out what's happened in the past. Right? You see how, I guess it began here. We were diverging, meaning price went higher, but the oscillator was falling over. Same thing down here. We had a regular bullish divergence, so this is a regular bearish divergence. Same thing here before COVID. We have this right here. We have a hidden bullish divergence right here. And then we have three drives of bearish divergence right here on the chart. Okay. Now, we have plenty of other examples as well, like over here and whatnot, right? This is actually a slightly higher, especially if muscle is 54.81. Right here it was 53.72. So this is extreme greed in price right here, okay? Now the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we have something aligning with the fractal here, and especially, again, everything is dependent on unemployment rate. This fractal right here. Okay, I'm not saying this is what's going to play out, but this is exactly how it played out during the pause and the rate hiking period back in 2006 and 7. Oops, did not mean to do that. Okay, so we know that the pause began in, let's say early July 2006, because this was end of June, right? Early July 2006, so July 2006. And the first rate cut came in September 2007 by 50 basis points. Well, we just hiked rates until July 2023, and September 18th we cut by the same amount, right? And with the same market reaction. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. There's many things I want to go over here. Here's the article from September 18th, 2007. The Federal Reserve cut the target on a key short-term interest rate by half of a percentage point Tuesday to 4.75%. The Fed also indicated that more rate cuts could be on the way. It's something that the investors shared. Stocks surged following the announcement, with the Dow finishing the day up more than 330 points, or 2.5%. The Nasdaq shot up 2.7%, while S&P 500 closed nearly 3% higher. Bonds fell, sending the yield on the benchmark 10-year US Treasury up to 4.5%. Did the stock market go up after that happened? Absolutely. Here's the rate cut. We went up. Boom. Same reaction. This fractal is taken from 2008. 2006 till 2009. Okay? This is exactly when the rate cut occurred. At this exact point in the fractal. This is the pause. Or this is the rate hikes and the pause. And again, it's taken from over here. So we know that the rate cuts began in September 18, 2007 by 50 basis points, but the pause began in June, July of 2006. So that means right here. This is where the fractal is taken from. That's why it's a similarity, okay? Because this looks the exact same so far. Again, I'm not saying it's going to have the same outcome in regards to it's going to look exactly like this, but it's been looking like this for a long time. On the Nasdaq, we had the same thing. This is from 2006 till 2009. This could deviate, but it's aligning with exactly what happened back then. Right? That's taken from over here, 2006 till 2009. Okay. What would this drawdown be? It would be below the COVID lows. In this case, you can see it was the same reaction, and you see what it says here about the 10-year US Treasury. Okay. So if we go to the 10-year yield, what did the 10-year yield do after this? It shot up, right? The rate cut was right there. And it went up. Same reaction. Now let's go to the 2-year. Do we have some similarity on the 2-year yield? This is a leading indicator for the Fed funds rate. We know that because that's what the Fed follows. I'm going to try and see if I can find a picture of that. Here. We can see that the Fed funds rate in red follows the blue line, which is the 2-year Treasury yield, right? And so what are they gonna do? They're doing the exact same thing. They're following the 2 yield. Where did S&P 500 also start to care? Oh, would you look at that? Right as the 2-year yield started to fall over, at the exact same point, we got up to the exact same high, after the exact same pause duration, and so far we had the exact same reaction in markets. Markets went up until October 11th, 2007. And then it fell over. We currently have 3 drives of bearish divergence and a fractal that looks the exact same, along with everything with the rate cutting and or the whole rate cycle, right? In regards to the hikes, the pause, and the cutting, aligning with whatever happened back then, right? What about the unemployment rate? Is the unemployment rate behaving in the same way? Look at what the chart looked like. The 2-year yield was collapsing. The stock market was going up slightly before it started rolling over. The unemployment rate had been creeping up. Then it went parabolic. Stock market at the all-time high. Stock market at the all-time high. Unemployment rate creeping up. Unemployment rate creeping up. 2-year yield falling. 2-year yield falling. After a 2-year consolidation period. After a 2-year consolidation period. It's all the same. Exact same rate cutting date, but exact same amount. Okay. It's interesting that the yield curve inversion duration tends to mark a worse drawdown in the S&P 500. You can see these are the most shallow drawdowns, around 20 to 30%. It's between 100 to 200 days of a inversion in the yield curve. But then you have the more severe ones, like 1974 and 2008, 56% drawdowns, around 500 600 days. And 1929 was after a 700-day inversion from January 1928 until December 1929. That led to a 90% drawdown. The inversion we had lasted for 794 days. The duration of the inversion signifies for how long the Fed stayed tight in this case. Okay? Show me a time in history where the unemployment rate goes up and the stock market doesn't go down. That's not a thing. We know that based on all previous cycles, right? Around this time is where the unemployment rate goes parabolic. This is months after the 10-year 3-month inversion. Right? So is that aligning? And again, what is this telling you? Between month 20 and say 32, the unemployment rate pretty much doubles. Right? Does that also align with what's happening with the 2-year yield here and the stock market, especially this fractal right here? Absolutely. And we have the 3 drives of bearish divergence on the weekly. We have bearish divergence on the monthly. If we go to the 3-month even, look at the 3-month. 3 drives, a high, a lower high, a lower high. A high, a higher high, and a higher high. So we have it on pretty much all time frames, okay? If we go to, what else? What was gold doing? I guess USD. What was gold doing? Going into the rate cut. It had been rising. Here's after the rate cut. It went parabolic, right? But then it pulled back in 2008. Gold went up until March 2008 for another 6 months or so after the S&P 500 had topped out. Gold is doing the same thing. For people arguing we're gonna get reinflation right now, that's not what history tells us. It's the M2 growth rate expansion that leads to the inflation spikes. In black we have the M2 growth rate, which leads to a spike in the red line. In this case the inflation, we can see in the 1940s that's what happened, is the M2 growth rate spiking that caused the inflation with a lag of about 1.5 to 3 years. Same thing in the 1970s. So the people arguing we're gonna get another inflation spike right here, they're not looking at the money supply. It contracted. That's what they're gonna feel. So today it's September 29th, but you could have made the exact same argument back on September 26th, 2007, right, as today, which is that US inflation pressures are easing and the economy should manage a soft landing. It's the same. Downplaying the yield curve. Some economists suspect the yield curve might not be as reliable a predictor of output growth as it used to be. So if there's something else I want to go over here briefly. And again, like we said here, tomorrow the Moon Boys will talk about how bullish rate cuts are. Didn't you see the market pumped? Yeah, September 18, 2007. Market soared after the Fed cuts key rate by 0.5 point. Went up until October 11th. Soft landing every single time. This time is different, right? Here's some more articles from back then. Fed chairman projects soft landing for US economy, February 2007. IMF survey, August 2007. Soft landing ahead for US economy. It's the same shit. There's no difference. What else is aligning with what happened back then? Well, DXY. DXY was tanking into 2007, 2008. It bottomed in March 2008, right here. And then it went parabolic. It had been tanking here. Just like it's been tanking here. Is it gonna go below this range low here? I'm long-term bullish on DXY, but I think it's gonna go lower, right? Is it gonna go higher after? I think so. I think we're gonna challenge these highs. What else? The yield curve. Are we seeing the same thing as back then? Absolutely. We know that the unemployment rate is rising with what the yield curve is historically always doing. We know that the US recessions, in this case, US recessions, they occur when we have this happening. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. After the yield curve inversion, after the yield curve inversion. Yield curve inversion, unemployment rate up, yield curve up. Recession. Same thing here. Inverted yield curve up, unemployment rate up. Yield curve up, unemployment rate up. So you would have to have a really good you would have to argue for something being different this time for this to not result in the same outcome as what happens always to the S&P 500 historically speaking, right? Because this is what happens to the S&P 500 in purple. When the yield curve goes up right here in the regular candles and the unemployment rate here, then you can see what happens to the stock market. You can see what happens to the stock market when the yield curve and unemployment rate goes up. The stock market tanks. Yield curve and unemployment rate up, stock market down. Yield curve and unemployment rate up, stock market down. Yield curve and unemployment rate up, what's going to happen to the stock market? There's a lot of similarities here. I had another one written here somewhere with the... Let me see. Yeah, this is kind of how I feel. You know when you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to piss, then ignore it because you think you can fall asleep and sometimes you do. But then you wake up again and you realize eventually that you cannot ignore it anymore, so you go and take a piss. This is the situation that's going on with the stock market right now. Ignore it until you can't. Rising unemployment and bull steepening yield curve until eventually you gotta face the problem, right? This is how the global financial crisis played out. January 2006, yield curve inverted. Predicts a rising unemployment rate which leads to GDP contraction in 6 to 24 months. May 2007, unemployment rate bottoms. September 18th, the 2007 first rate cut occurred. 50 basis points. Exact same amount as over here. September 18, 2024, first rate cut. After the exact same pause period. Right? 14, 15 months. The S&P 500 topped on October 11, 2007. In December 2007, the recession began. Wasn't officially announced until December 2008 by the MBR and lots of revisions. You see what they just revised GDP numbers back in Q2 2022. So like they go and revise these numbers years later. In March 2009, the S&P 500 bottomed. In October 2009, unemployment rate peaks. So far in July of 2022, the 10-year, 2-year inverted. Was a 25-month inversion, 794 days, the longest inversion in human history, which tend to have a correlation to a worse drawdown on the S&P 500. In October of 2022, the 10-year 3-month inverted. In April of 2023, the unemployment rate bottomed at 3.4%. Again, September 18, 2024, we got a 50 basis point rate cut, just like over here. When does S&P top? I don't know. When does S&P bottom? I don't know. When does the unemployment rate peak? I don't know. But based on all the similarities, the S&P 500 should top in October. It should bottom in March of 2026. And the unemployment rate should peak in October of 2026. When did the recession begin? I don't know. It began in the GFC cycle after a 0.6% rise in unemployment rate from 4.4% to 5%. So a 0.9% rise so far must definitely count as one as well. It took 38 months for the whole process to play out from the yield curve inversion to S&P 500 bottom. January 2006 to March 2009. It took 45 months for the whole process to play out from the yield curve inversion to the unemployment rate peaking, January 2006 until October 2009. It is because of this that people doubt it, but it's always correct. Right? There are so many similarities between this and what happened back then. Here's some more things. Timeline of 50 basis point rate cuts as the first rate cut by global central banks. 2001, 2007, 2008, 1991, 2008. That's when the stock market fell 80%. Here it fell, well, the Nasdaq fell 84%. Here all indexes fell around 60%. So keep that in mind. Right? It's all the same. The 2-year yield is falling. The S&P 500 is pushing up just slightly more. The unemployment rate has been trending up. The yield curve is coming out of inversion through a bull steepener, signifying this time is not different. It's going to be deflationary. That's what all of this means. The bull steepener is called that again because bull steepening is when it's bullish for bond price, but it's bearish for stock market and the economy in the short to mid-term. Interest rate cuts. You might go, why are they bearish? It's not that the interest rate cuts are bearish. It's more about why are they cutting rates? They're cutting rates in response to something bad because interest rates are about growth and inflationary expectations. So rising interest rates means that the economy is strong and you have inflation expectations. Lowering interest rates is bad. Why? Because it means that you have the opposite in regards to expectations. Also, if you're gonna borrow money, number one, good luck. Try and borrow money in 2008 during the global financial crisis. The banks are not gonna lend. They look at the yield curve, they see the bull steepening in the yield curve, and they're not gonna lend money to you. Okay, quite simple. And if you're gonna borrow money, you're gonna wait for the interest to come down even more because there is, according to the predictions, right? I mean, it's not just predictions. They follow the 2-year yield. We know that. I show that here. But we have the CME Fed Watch tool, right? But again, we know that they just follow the 2-year yield based off this. Because they don't really know what they're doing. I guess I wrote all of it here. When they lower interest, not because they want to, it's because they follow the 2-year treasury yield, which is determined by supply and demand in the treasury market. The most sophisticated traders and investors in the world are in the bond market. It's 3 times the size of the stock market. What I mean by they follow the 2-year yield is this. 2-year yield moves first and the Fed funds rate follows, the overnight lending rate set by the central bank. Try getting a loan in 2008. Good luck, have fun. Banks they only care about risk and reward. They won't lend into a risky environment, and here's why. Banks make money by borrowing money short term and lending it out long term. If the curve has been inverted, it means they don't make money. On top of that, they're sitting at record levels of unrealized losses, I guess I meant to say here, unrealized losses on held-to-maturity securities. A billionaire looks at the situation and thinks, I need to move my counterparty risk from the banks to the government. Because the banks can fail, but the government cannot. Here's why. The billionaires know they want to get their money back regardless of the FDIC, because the FDIC doesn't have infinite money. So there's $24 trillion in the US banking system. They only have enough to recover up to $117 billion. The long end of the yield curve, which leads to a yield curve inversion, financial position by billionaires reveal what they think is going to happen. That's why the curve is never wrong. That's why the mainstream media and the economists downplay it, because of its accuracy. Billionaires such as Warren Buffett contribute towards the inversion of the yield curve. Berkshire is about philanthropy. You can see that here. Because in October 2008, Warren Buffett had said that he had owned nothing but US government bonds. 10 to 30 year durations is government bonds in this case, right? So if he bought the long end of the yield curve, he contributed towards the yield curve inversion. And every single time you can see what happens, right? When the unemployment rate in orange goes up, the stock market goes down. You can say it's going to be different this time, that's fine and all, but there's all the similarities here. I have all of the phases of the rate hikes, pause and cutting, marked in green, yellow, and red. And we know what happens to the market and unemployment rate when they cut interest rates. Here's total unemployment rate. The red line is where we are today. 2008 is in blue. Here's where we are. We're just doing the exact same thing as every single time. The only way it's different this time is if we get very steepening in the yield curve and the unemployment rate stops going up. Otherwise, it's not different. It's the same as every single other time. Alright, I think that's all I wanted to go for this video. I'm gonna make more videos now with unemployment rate reading coming out on October 4th and November 1st. October 4th, November 1st. Okay. For now, this is it. Take care, peace.